Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something that, let's be honest, pretty much all of us take completely for granted. Well, right up until disaster strikes anyway. We're going to be looking closely at the local plumbing infrastructure of East Providence, Rhode Island. But look, I want you to think about this a little differently today. We aren't just talking about, wrenches and pipes. We're actually going to frame this as a really fascinating but incredibly fragile ecosystem. It's this underground world where the powerful forces of nature and decades of human engineering are just constantly colliding on a daily basis. Okay, so let's tackle the central mystery right off the bat. Why do so many basements flood in East Providence? It's honestly the question that haunts homeowners around here. Just picture it. It's 2 a.m., it's the dead of winter, and you suddenly wake up to the terrifying sound of rushing water. And unless somebody left the bathtub running, that is never, ever a good sound. It means a pipe is burst or groundwater is just pouring right in. The stakes are incredibly high here, guys. We're talking about damage that can easily run into the thousands of dollars in just a matter of minutes. But the thing is, these floods aren't just random bad luck. As we'll see, they're actually the very predictable result of some highly specific environmental and infrastructural conditions. So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The East Providence plumbing ecosystem. 2. Nature's war on your pipes. 3. The aging infrastructure problem. 4. Navigating codes and permits. And finally, 5. The professional repair process. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the East Providence plumbing ecosystem. So East Providence sits right at the convergence of the Seekonk and 10 Mile rivers. And geographically, that creates a persistently high water table. For homes near places like Watchamacket Cove, that means groundwater infiltration is putting immense, year-round stress on residential plumbing systems. It's often the main culprit behind those chronic basement floods we see during spring thaws. But that's not all. The area also gets hit with these brutal freeze-thaw cycles. We are talking about winter temperatures plunging way down below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, only to swing rapidly back up to 40 degrees just a few days later. And as if that wasn't enough, the ground itself is actively fighting the infrastructure. East Providence has really clay-heavy soil. Because clay expands and contracts so dramatically whenever the seasonal moisture changes, it's literally shifting the earth around these very delicate underground pipes. Moving right along to Section 2, Nature's War on Your Pipes. It really is a war out there. Underground, you've got the root systems of these massive mature oak and maple trees actively hunting for moisture. They specifically target older clay sewer pipes under established streets, think Newman Avenue or Taunton Avenue, and they just push their way into the tiniest little cracks, causing massive, complete blockages. Meanwhile, above ground, those sub-20-degree cold snaps we talked about, they target the water sitting inside copper supply lines and PVC vents. The freezing water expands with this immense force, silently cracking the pipes. And the truly horrifying part is that you don't even know what happened until the ice thaws out and the flooding actually begins. 40 to 80. I want you to let that number sink in. That is the massive volume of water in gallons that a single failing standard water heater will dump directly onto your basement floor. To put that into perspective, imagine pouring out 80 large milk jugs of water all at once. Why does this happen? Well, East Providence is known for having hard water, and over a span of just 8 to 12 years, that hard water causes this accelerated sediment buildup inside the tank. It totally overworks the heating elements and actually corrodes the tank from the inside out. Eventually, it reaches catastrophic failure and just releases all of that water in a single instant. Which brings us to Section 3, the aging infrastructure problem. Now, a lot of the really beautiful housing stock in neighborhoods like Rumford and Phillipsdale was built back between the 1940s and 1970s. The problem is, the plumbing infrastructure they used back then, we're talking mostly galvanized steel for supply lines and cast iron for drains, has simply reached the end of its natural lifespan. There's just no way around it. Compare that failing decades-old material with the modern upgrades professionals use today. Stuff like highly reliable copper and this amazing flexible PEX tubing, which are actually designed to withstand modern water pressures and completely resist corrosion. Now, you might be wondering, how do I even know if I have that 1940s infrastructure failing right inside my walls? Well, the symptoms are pretty visceral. When the zinc coating finally wears off the inside of those old galvanized steel pipes, the exposed steel just rusts. The result? You turn on your kitchen tap and see rust-colored water. Plus, you get severely restricted flow because that rust is literally clogging the pipe from the inside. Meanwhile, when those old cast iron drains inevitably develop cracks, they release these horrible, rotten egg sewer gas odors right into your living space. It's basically an infrastructure ticking time bomb. All right, let's shift gears to Section 4, Navigating Codes and Permits. Look, fixing these problems isn't just about making good guesses. Rhode Island adopted the 2018 International Plumbing Code with some very specific state amendments. That means professionals are bound by exact mathematical standards. For example, a professional plumber absolutely has to ensure that your supply lines maintain a minimum pressure of 20 psi at all fixtures, period. And when they're installing a drain pipe, the law requires a precise slope of exactly 1/4 inch per foot. It's a Goldilocks situation. If it's too flat, the waste simply won't flow. But if it's too steep, the water rushes right past the waste. The code literally mandates perfection. And these codes go even further to protect public health, requiring things like a backflow prevention device. In East Providence, especially for older properties located down in FEMA flood zones along the waterfront, this piece of technology is absolutely vital. Think about it. During a major flood event, immense pressure can actually force contaminated floodwater to flow backwards, through a home's pipes, and right into the clean municipal water supply. Yeah, nobody wants that. So, local regulations mandate the properties in these high-risk zones be retrofitted with these one-way valves to make sure that never happens. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, the professional repair process. So when disaster inevitably strikes, the professional response is actually highly structured. It starts with 24/7 contact and dispatch, because as we established earlier, a freeze-thaw cycle absolutely does not care if it's a holiday weekend. Step 2 is diagnosis and approval, and this hinges on absolute transparency. You get upfront pricing before a single tool is even brought into the house. And Step 3 is repair and verification. Guys, this isn't about slapping a temporary patch on a cracked pipe and calling it a day. It's about permanent solutions, rigorous testing to meet the strict legal codes we just talked about, and of course, a full cleanup. And I think a lot of people don't realize that modern plumbing is actually highly tech-driven now. Today, about 40% of the diagnostic heavy lifting is done by these high-definition video cameras that are snaked right down into the lines to locate exact tree root intrusions. Another 30% relies on incredibly precise pressure gauges to check for those 20 psi minimums, and the final 30% uses specialized acoustic leak detection equipment. The whole point is they find the exact location of the failure before a single wrench is turned or a shovel hits that shifting clay dirt in your yard. So, the ultimate question I want to leave you with today is this. Is your local plumbing ecosystem ready for the next freeze-thaw cycle? We've seen the sheer, undeniable power of the local water tables, the destruction caused by expanding tree roots, and the silent, inevitable decay of mid-century steel pipes. Understanding this ecosystem isn't just neat trivia. It's about shifting your entire mindset from reacting in a panic at 2 a.m. to practicing proactive maintenance. Know your geography, know what materials are in your walls. And when the system inevitably gets overwhelmed, know that the solution lies in exact codes and modern diagnostics. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. And honestly, I hope you look at the pipes in your basement a whole lot differently from now on.